There you are.
There you are. There you
Other
are.
way.
Hello, everyone, and
Hello.
welcome to
The Brady Bunch. Wait,
the Brady Bunch. Oh my gosh, we need more guests. Welcome to our first episode of Vox Vomitus of 2022. I am your host, Jennifer Ann Gordon, the author of Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent, as well as the Hotel series and Pretty Ugly. Joining me, as always, is my Vox Vomitus vixen, Allison Martine, author of The Bourbon Books, which includes Dibs Since September and Move On Melinda. And Dibs is a very recent award-winning novel. So again, we're still celebrating that from a few weeks ago.
Still drinking about it.
Still drinking about that.
Or just started to drink about it. I'm not really sure.
Who knows? There's no rules here in internet land.
No.
With us today is our fantastic guest, Kim Taylor Blakemore. And
I
she
brought
is here
my drink.
Yes. And she is here to talk about the writing process in general and also her historic mystery After Alice Fell, which I just have to say, and I know I say this all the time on the show, we love the book. I just finished it 2 days ago, and once again we get a great book that checks off so many of the things I look for in a novel.
I swear, you seriously are just looking for New England, New Hampshire authors, and you just go, so did someone die in New Hampshire? I need that book.
Well, but Kim's not a New Hampshire native, so I didn't expect an asylum, a lunatic asylum in New Hampshire, of all places, which
you
for
guys
people,
have a lot of lunatics.
We do. For people who are unfamiliar with me, I live in New Hampshire. It's a small state, which in historic mysteries tends to have a lot of death.
And lunacy.
Yes.
Kim, where are you?
I'm in Oregon, which has a lot of death and lunacy too, because of the
You
rain.
really do. Oh, and a lot of
Bigfoot.
serial killers.
And serial
Bigfoot.
killers.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say Pacific Northwest, you're in like serial killer territory.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all from there.
Yeah, exactly.
See, this is the difference between our genres, because she's like serial killer and I'm still on. So tell me more about Bigfoot. You're like, there's no Bigfoot in my book. That's okay. Can we write him in a sequel? A sequel where it's an asylum for insane Sasquatch, and go.
I know, I was going to say for big feet.
I'm wearing sloth slippers. Does that count for something?
Yes, you're dressed like a Bigfoot. I don't know.
My feet are not that big, but that's okay.
I wouldn't think they are because we're the same size.
No, we're small.
So, anyways, Kim, about you. Tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about yourself and a little bit about After Alice Fell.
Okay. Well, I already said I'm from the state of serial killers and Bigfoot. So we can just start right there. The only way to stay sane in the rain is to do things like write and drink.
Those two things often go hand in hand.
I drink coffee. I don't drink. I drink coffee, but it keeps me up through all the gray days. So I write historical thrillers and historical suspense. And the three that I have two out, The Companion and After Alice Fell, are both in New Hampshire, in the same town, as is the next one coming out, The Deception. And so they're in the 3 decades. So 1855 is The Companion, 1865 is After Alice Fell, and 1877 is The Deception.
Okay, you got to tell us how you're set everything then in this state when you're in Oregon. Yeah. What's the inspiration for the opposite coast?
Yes.
Because you knew some of the names of the towns.
Yes, because I love New Hampshire and I've been out there twice for research. But when I first started writing The Companion, it was really gothic. And I said, where in the U.S. is really gothic? That has that same sort of English vibe, right? Lots of woods and mill towns that are falling apart and trains that go nowhere.
And people with secrets that don't want to talk about their emotions.
Exactly.
That everything is just like right under the surface.
Or the surface of water. You know, it depends. People drown a lot.
I don't know. Well, but so I was looking for it, and then I started going, well, New England has all of that. And then I really just thought, where can I set for the first one? Where is a small mill town? What river and whatever? So I literally took a map out and started looking at some history and went like this. and I was right on the Contoocook River.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's right by Peterborough, however you say it. How do
It
you
is
say
how
it?
you say it. It is Peterborough.
Okay, all right, because my town's name is Harborough.
So not borough.
Harborough. Yeah, you're even saying it with a New England accent.
Yeah,
Instead of like Harrowborough.
Harrowborough. In my head, it was Harrowborough until somebody said you're an idiot, and it was the narrator. It was the woman who narrated the book, the companion. She's from Keene. And so we were talking about the book. She's like, "You pronounce everything wrong."
Well, what's funny is
I'm like, oh my God.
I grew up in southern New Hampshire, so I don't have that like Harborough, or I can't even do an accent. So in my head, it was still Harrowborough.
Yes.
I went to school for theater. My accent has been beaten out of me. Harrowborough.
Well, and I like that. I know that Keene's a real place. Keene, spelled Keene, is my maiden name. So I've had many people say, "Oh, do you have family from there?" I didn't even know till I was a grown up that is a place. I'm going, we have a town.
Yeah,
no one told me we had a town.
You even have there's a college there too.
There's a college. No one sent me there. Sorry.
It's a great town. You are, Jennifer, you're between Concord and Keene, right? Almost smack between the two.
I'm smack between the two. And I worked in Concord. I still work in Concord. Yeah. So I got very excited during your book when it was like, oh, we're taking, not the train, but we're going, are you going up to Concord? Or are you going here? So I was like, where is she? Because she's not in Concord and it's not Manchester. And I thought you were in Keene. But then somebody said, oh, like so-and-so went to Keene. And I'm like, oh, they're not in Keene. They must be in Peterborough.
Perfect. That is
I'm
excellent.
A detective.
Annie, hello. Hello. I haven't seen her in ages. So fun.
Annie is the reason you're on this show.
Really?
Yes,
Annie's
because
a superstar. She's hilarious.
She's amazing. And there was one time that we had a guest cancel too late. And I messaged Annie and I was just like, do you have authors that like, me, our show that we would love? And she said, you and Tanya Mitchell.
Tanya, yes.
So Tanya came in like, I can be there next week. And we were like, yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. Now, there's an asylum in Concord.
Yes, I do. It's now state offices.
It is. Isn't that odd?
I knew somebody who worked at the state offices who allowed us the use of their key card.
I love how cryptic you're being right now. Because this person's going to get fired if you finish the story.
It's just a story. She's making up.
It's just a story. I am a fiction. We were allowed to, with supervision from somebody who might work at the state offices, we were allowed to go into the kitchen and the tunnels. But most of the buildings are blocked off.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Annie says she loves you all.
So for people who haven't read After Alice Fell, it starts at the beginning with the woman, Marion, who's in the morgue of an asylum, and she's identifying the body of her sister Alice. And the asylum says she committed suicide, and Marion says there's absolutely no way she committed suicide. So the entire book is trying to find out the truth of what happened to her sister. And then you get all the New Hampshire secrets and lies and all that stuff, and people dying underwater and things like that.
Yeah, and there's always a pond. There's always a pond on the property.
They're everywhere. You guys have so many ponds and trees. It's like crazy. I thought Oregon had trees. No, you guys have the trees.
I recently moved to Deering, and when my friends came to help us move, they were just like, they drove to our house and they were like, where do you live? This is just like all swamps and woods. And they referred to it as murder country. And I'm like, yeah, there you go. That's about it. It's beautiful though.
Allison, where are you?
See, I'm in Orange County, California.
Oh,
I'm by
very
Disneyland.
good. I went to UC Irvine.
Oh, okay. So my husband actually teaches a writing course with UC Irvine for kids. So
fantastic.
We have Irvine here all the time, represented in the house. But I always laugh because we never get books set in Orange County, because other than Dean Koontz, nobody writes books set in Orange County. He's only willing to kill people off.
Pike Didn't Christopher Pike
I don't
write
know.
books
I
in
know
Orange
that
County?
Christopher Rice, Anne Rice's son, was writing some books set in California, but they were more, if I'm remembering correctly, they were like Inland Empire kind of high desert area. They weren't here.
That's another murder sort of place.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have a lot of we just don't get exciting things happening here. Everybody's just like,
Because you have Disneyland.
Yeah.
You have Disneyland, you have Sun.
We have Sun.
Yeah, you have Sun.
It's not a great, like, my most recently completed book. I have stuff specifically set in Orange, so anyone who ever reads that will get something set in a place I actually know. Old Town Orange.
Fun.
Yes,
that's fun.
So
that's
Kim,
so cool.
First I want to say I love your style of writing. It was so poetic and literary, and I felt like so much of it, if you just like broke down the lines, it would have read as like this stunning poem about like grief and trauma, while still being a mystery. So I love that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to touch on is I think my favorite part of almost every book is when I read the acknowledgement section. And I love it when the authors are honest during their acknowledgement section and say things like, this took 6 drafts, or thank you, everybody that turned this from a mess to what you're reading now. And I think you wrote something in your acknowledgements like 6 drafts or something like that, or like, thank you for saving this book. So this is why you're here, to talk about the process. All 6 drafts.
Yes, the process.
So, I mean, it's historical. So obviously, I'm assuming you started with a ton of research.
Yes. So, yeah, it's a lot of research. And I tend to research more. A lot of the research of that was done before COVID. So I was able to go to New Hampshire twice, and I went to the archives and was able to look through jail things. I was not able to get into the asylum, unlike you.
She doesn't have a friend with
but
a
key.
key.
I have like that creepy Google Earth, and I Google Earth the whole where the asylum was and all of
nice.
that. And went to the state library. I got a lot of stuff from there. So I really like primary sources rather than reading things that are later. So I will first, when I'm doing the research, I stop researching the year the books takes place. So I don't want to really know how people think past that time. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
no, that makes a lot of
really
sense, because you
does.
want to get in that mindset of what those characters and what they were drawing from. And one of the things, as far as I'm not a huge history buff, even though I was a history minor, so you'd think I should be, but having that in the back of the, like, it was the war was going on, and how the war, because it's just post Civil War, and your main character was a nurse, although she hadn't been trained as a nurse, who then was out there and used that kind of as an escape from the life she was leading. And people were looking at her like, how dare you? It's like, well, there's a war going on.
I know.
I think that's kind of a big deal. And we look back, and this war still is a huge thing in our history. And for them, it's like, you know, this disrupted our plant and the mill and people's jobs, rather than, and a lot of people died.
Yeah, I mean, you see it in that book, particularly the loss, and you know, putting the same loss in that she has, and the woman down the street who lost both of her sons in the war and has the house and can't afford it because there was no pensions. And then, you know, just there's loss everywhere from that. But I love research, and I love going in person. So during COVID has been difficult. So the new book has been completely researched online, which is
is it like a closed room mystery, but the room happens to be in New Hampshire?
No, it is. It's not a closed room mystery. I had some great conversations. I had a conversation with a guy who knows every single type of carriage that was made at this place in New Hampshire.
That's really obscure.
And he wants me to come.
Knowledge.
No, he wanted me to come. He's like, I will drive you all over the state, because there's this one that has 18 people and 6 horses, and then I'll take you to this one at this person's farm that's a 2-seater.
Is he
over
Amish?
the place. He's not. He just knows.
If he is, I don't know how he's talking to you on the phone.
There's a really
sorry.
People here love that we love our history.
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a lot of like The historical
Every
societies around here.
historical society I went to, all of them on both trips, they were amazing. The people were amazing. They're like, come
They
look
must
at
just
all
be
this
so
cool
happy
stuff.
to share this information.
Somebody
I-
cares.
Somebody cares about the carriages.
I went to the one in Keene, and like there was 3 women down in the basement area where they just had like cases of glass that was made there and scissors and the types of plates and stuff. And they said, "You want to come see this other room?"
These are
I'm
probably
like,
my relatives.
Sure. She said they opened this door in this basement. And there's this like horrible room with just like things all on shelves and
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
bricks. There's all these bricks, and I'm like, what the heck?
Why?
What
is
room
this?
is
She goes,
this?
and she picks one up, and she's like, "Do you see this brick? We have to catalog every one of these that came from a building in town." And then she's like, "Every one."
Oh my.
Puts it down.
Has she escaped from the asylum?
I was
Because
gonna say,
No,
and then
I
they
think they're
close
going to
the
end up
door.
in the asylum. They're going to end up there. It's like, oh my God. I'm like, what? And she said, people just drop everything off. They think it's historic, but these bricks come from a real building that's historic. So we have to code every single one.
if it came from the building, can we just put it back in the building and call it good?
I think that what we're going to do is try and recreate some buildings. I think that's why they're archiving the stuff, but she didn't
oh
seem
my gosh,
happy
you
with
never
that
think
job.
about how many bricks are in a building until you have to, I think, probably catalog
There were
them.
piles of them.
But I
was
know
just
why
like,
they do things like that. Because back when I was in high school, and I don't know exactly why we did this, my high school youth group went and we remudded, that's a thing, a historical log cabin in Virginia. And we're sitting there and like they removed we took out the old mud and put in new mud. Why? I'm still not sure.
They
But it's
did it
something
to
we
keep
spent
you
a week
kids
doing.
busy and off drugs and from,
Exactly.
having sex.
No, I didn't say that didn't happen. I said this is what we were doing during the daytime. And we also had to put on a new roof. And this is also where I learned that no matter how thick your soles are, a bent nail can go through the side of your shoe. And I'm really glad I got my tetanus shot before I went. Because
Oh, this is
stepped on one.
awful.
That's
But yeah, I
awful.
know that's a thing. That
That's
people
awful.
you have to keep like the original, so much of the original stuff. So it's like,
Yeah.
well, here are the bricks, and now we have new mortar, I guess. But I don't want to catalog. That sounds terrible.
They were just happy to have someone down there so they could like complain about the bricks, but show me all the other stuff. So I'm like,
it's
and you know,
people,
I'm like,
it's you. It's people like you who make people who volunteer and work at historical societies. It makes it worthwhile, or else it's just cataloging bricks. And every once in a while, probably a kid has to come in for like a
field trip.
report for
Yeah,
a field trip, and they don't want to be there. They're going to be like, yeah, bricks.
I could have gone to the
it's
aquarium.
interesting when you talk to them, and I had a rock star librarian that I worked with at the state library for both the companion and this book, and I was able to say, this is the story. So in the companion, it's a woman who may or may not have killed 2 women in the house she worked at.
Ooh.
So I said, this is the story, and she's in prison, and I've spent a year trying to figure out in 1855 where she would be, and I couldn't find anything.
Like
even
what prison you mean?
There was no women's prison. So and
So what
jails and prison and courts worked very differently. Like you waited 3 months for the Court of Common Pleas people to come through to even do your case. And the people who did the accusation paid for everything.
So where was someone who is where was someone who is a suspect kept in the meantime?
A lot of them would have a cell at whether it's at the station or some place.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be kept with the sheriff. In Connecticut, there's a story I'm researching now that the sheriff keeps one of the people at his house because she's nice and she knows how to use men. So he's like, you can stay at my house. Okay.
We can share covers. And
but anyway, so this woman, she's like, oh, I'll look through the archives. This is fantastic. And she found all the prison reports from 1849 on. And she's like, you need 1855. It has the warden, the doctor, the minister, an inventory of everything in the prison. And then through that, what happened in the year, what was built, what was fixed, what was repaired, every single person, why they were there and for how long. If you stole a horse,
That's
it was 7 years.
incredible.
Right?
Joe Compton says, I would turn those bricks into a stage play of the Cask of Amontillado. Nice.
Excellent.
Don't visit Joe's house. Okay.
Yeah, so she found all those for me so I could see that the women were kept above the warden's rooms. So the warden's family lived at the prison, the men's prison, and the women, 6 women lived upstairs and they served the family.
Oh, what's
so so she did
Yeah.
that. And then when I did the next one, I said, hey, I'm going to do a thing in an asylum. Want to go with me? I said, I'm coming back to New Hampshire. We're going to get in the asylum. I think I'll set the book in Concord. But we couldn't get in.
Yeah.
But she did find the records from the doctors there. So you have no cases. You don't know that. But I was able to then take that asylum and move it and make it a fictional one in the fictional town.
See, and I was wondering, because I know you had mentioned the asylum in Concord, and then I was like, oh, was there a smaller one in Peterborough?
Yes, in my head.
Yeah. Because the one in Concord, as you know, because you've seen it, I'm sure, is massive. Yeah. It's more than one building.
Yes. And they took, at the time, the Quakers had built those. And it was about having people who had dis-ease have fresh air and industry. So they had their own animals. They did everything within there.
Okay, yes. Industry. Did they actually give them needles then? Because reading that scene, and it's not a huge spoiler, so I apologize. There's a scene where Marion's touring this place and everybody's sewing, and none of them got needles. And they're just like, look at me sewing. And
you know what? Don't tell anyone else, but I have no effing idea.
I just love that. It was
like, that's gothic. That's weird. That's totally weird.
It is. It was such a creepy scene where they're like,
if you think about it, would you give one of those people a needle?
No.
Get me out of the asylum.
No. And I will say, this isn't funny, but in the early 1950s, my grandmother was actually in Concord, in the asylum in Concord.
Oh, really?
And my mother remembers on Sundays, they would allow families to come and picnic, and they would walk the patients to the window and let them like wave between the bars at their family and then like go away.
That's odd.
Even up until the asylum in Concord closed down, I think they were still providing, like the steam industry was there. It heated all of downtown Concord. Yeah. People worked in like the steam rooms.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. That's sad. It's through the window.
Yeah. Put that in your book.
And I'm just
another book.
I'm thinking of a similarly sad scene.
Yes, you should.
When my mom was going through chemo treatment, she couldn't have kids in the room, and I was pregnant at the time, but my sister already had her eldest daughter, and my sister would go down in the parking lot and like parade by with the baby who could wave at my mom. But that's the visual I'm getting there of, we can't see you, but sort of.
And I think a lot of people went through this during COVID.
Yeah.
Too.
We're doing that
nursing homes. And we're doing that still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Indeed.
So you start with your research. You have a ton of research. You have a ton of helpers.
Yeah.
What is your first draft like? Is it factual, or do you add the facts in later? Like,
I just,
is it word vomit?
No, I tend to, for After Alice Fell, I didn't know what I was going to write. And I just got on a plane. I was talking to my brother. I said, I wrote The Companion. I don't know what's next. I think I want to do this sort of pseudo-Western. He's like, you need to do another gothic.
That was not pseudo-Western. Okay.
It's not pseudo-Western.
Just checking. No. Did I miss something?
No, I wanted to, because I have this book that I'm still working on. That's sort of my, well, anyway, that's not neither here nor there. It's a different book. But I got on an airplane and I just opened this notebook and pulled out a pencil and I just wrote New Hampshire, 1865, The Asylum, and just started writing on the plane. And the very first scene is what I wrote on the plane. I mean, if I could pull off the wall, because I put on the wall the first page of my books, or did when I hand wrote them. Now I type them. So that doesn't look as pretty on the wall. But yeah, and so it was just that. It just started with that. And who's Marion, and who is this woman? And then I just go from there. So then I tried and like create some form of a story from that.
Mm-hmm. I like the way you said that. Just some form of a story. I don't know.
Well, I don't think I write mysteries. I write more suspense. You can know who in anything, but there's no surprise. Like, oh my gosh, it's that person who did it. It's like,
Yeah, well, I love the difference between a whodunit and a why done it.
yes. So
Yeah.
why done it are to me are more suspense, right? So it's
But there
like,
were a lot of whys in your book. There
Yeah.
were a lot of whys that were revealed. Everything, and I don't want to say all of them, but there were a lot more whys than just what happened with Alice. That was just like the starting one. And
Right.
I will take issue with your first scene. A, I loved it, but B, I just kept telling Jen, and she's like, "It's not Alice," and just stop. Is I wanted it to be related to Alice in Wonderland, because I wanted it to be that Alice come back, and it says right in the beginning that the cause of death, mania. I'm like, well, yeah, if she came back from Wonderland, she'd be kind of screwed up.
I know.
in the
Allison's
head,
like,
probably.
can you just tell me, is it
And
Alice in
and
Wonderland
Jen's
related?
like, it's not. I'm like, are you sure though? I probably was about halfway done before I'm like, okay, it's not. I finally give up. It's not. I will stop trying to make it happen.
That would be brilliant.
But well, and both Jen and I think we both have read a book that's called Just After Alice that isn't really based on that, but it's Gregory Maguire, but it's, he writes all the fairy tale stuff, and Jen's like, it's not, it's in an asylum. Stop. I'm like, but she used the word Alice. Like, stop it. The name does not mean anything other than that's the name of the person.
That name is iconic, isn't it?
It is.
You immediately think Alice, and I even tried to change her name because I thought that she's Alice, and I'm like, that's
certain
her
characters,
name.
the name just becomes part of them, and you cannot change their name.
Isn't that true?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the title was perfect because everybody has that iconic image of Alice in Wonderland falling. And now to like superimpose it on like somebody else, I was like, oh, love it. And I love the name Alice.
So. Well, and especially because she is a character who is not all right in the head, as they say. And that's a lot of figuring out more about who she is and why she's like this and why did she get committed. That's one of the biggest whys that goes through there. And the way you describe her, I loved all of that. So, I mean, I'm mostly teasing about the whole, what do you mean this isn't Alice in Wonderland? I wanted to have a tea party, because I'm glad it didn't go that direction, because it's been done, like, I don't think there would have been as many surprises and revelations.
I can't do Gregory Maguire. He's
okay.
Brilliant as he is.
He's fine. Like, you do you, let him do him. And the scenes with the I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but I loved even just the old style. And I'm sure somebody probably had to help you with the research about the slideshows. I love that little bit of entertainment that like, oh, we're going to put up slides, and that they're painted slides. And my 6-year-old right now has been trying to make a projector out of a mirror, and and a shoebox, and he really wanted my cell phone. Like, you can't have my cell phone. I need my cell phone. But I ripped a mirror out of my eyeshadow case because he wouldn't stop bugging me. I'm like, fine, you can have this. And I'm just thinking, is this what they did in After Alice to make a projector? They used a mirror and that's how it works.
So those projectors, the first time I heard about them was when I was researching Bowery Girl a long time ago. And Jacob Riis wrote a book called How the Other Half Lives in New York City. He was the first person who showed the underside of the Bowery and the immigrants and the poor in the Gilded Age. And he took a ton of photographs. So he would go all around the country or the East, and he had a magic lantern. And because he would take those photographs, the slides, and project them on walls. So he would go to Hillsborough or Deering. That's where you're from. Deering?
Yep. It's Deering.
But he would go and write on the brick
post
wall
office.
and project these huge images to show people who didn't understand and didn't know how bad the poverty was at the time. And I remember going to the Museum of the City of New York to see the slides that he had. And they took me upstairs, and I got to wear all the gloves. And there's some that I really wanted to see. And she goes, okay, I'll go get them for you. Now in my head, because they've been on my computer, I'm expecting these slides, these photos, right? They're like literally this big.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, really? Really? I came all the way out here to see this.
No, to be like,
it's
this. And you're like,
because
lovely.
It went in that projector. So that was sort of that idea. And I said, I've always wanted to use that, those magic lanterns. You can still buy them, you can you get on eBay, type in magic
eBay
lantern.
Has everything.
Don't tell my kid he'll want one.
Yeah, they sound really cool.
I want an extended version of this book that has like extras in it, like pages from Alice's journal and her drawings and like color illustrations. So get on that.
If I
Can you
had
draw?
any sense of art, I could do it, but I'm terrible. Terrible
then you'll have
artist.
to
I'd
work
have
with
to have
Jen on that,
somebody else
'cause
do it. That would be
you draw.
really interesting. You know, one of the things in that book is I really wanted Alice to have a voice. Because she doesn't speak, and she's dead.
Well, there's that.
So there's two
And
things.
she's
She
Two
has
things.
no voice because she is dead.
And
but also
because she
did not
doesn't speak, because she
Yeah.
stopped speaking at 14. But I
Which is-
really wanted her to have a voice, and that was really important to me. That she did, because she's one of those people that is forgotten and cast aside.
Yeah.
The odd.
The
You know,
odd.
just odd.
Yeah. I know. She like broke my heart so much, and I was so intrigued by her because she seemed, especially like through the eyes of her nephew, to be like this otherworldly person
Yeah,
that
she was
you
like
want to
magic to
know.
him.
She was
Yeah.
magic.
Well, I feel like the nephew was the only one who really understood her, who really was able to communicate with her. And I think that's one of the things. And I have a big soft spot in my heart for people who are nonverbal and who don't necessarily communicate through the ways that everybody else does. And that doesn't mean that they're any less, like there's always a presumption, oh, well, if they aren't speaking, they must not have anything to say. And that's just completely wrong.
Right.
We just don't necessarily know how to listen. And he was the only one who did. Everybody else is just like, she's a burden. She's this, she's that.
Yeah.
And you know, one of my children she's not nonverbal. She speaks plenty, but she communicates mostly through her art, and so did Alice. And I totally saw that connection there, and just even our understanding of how people who don't have the same standard neurotype were treated 10 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Back then, I mean, Alice, she stopped speaking at a specific point, but selective mutism, which is a bad term, but mutism in general, and situational mutism and trauma-induced mutism are huge things. And people just are like, we don't know what to do with you.
And the thing is if Alice had stopped talking when she was 2, people would have said she was a changeling.
Probably, yeah.
Weird, you know?
Huh.
But she probably wouldn't have started talking before 2. She would have babbled and then just didn't progress beyond babbling.
Yeah.
But all those things, just how they handled it. But I loved how you handled the fact that there was trauma involved there, and no one wanted to look into that. They're just like, oh, well, I'll manage her, and then I'm tired of managing her, and no one comes to visit because she's there. And all of that just was heartbreaking. But I thought it was very interesting, though, then the whole who's coming to visit and the social status, because then it's turned around then later with Kathy.
Lovely Kathy.
Kathy.
Kathy. I feel like Kathy, my favorite thing about Kathy.
I have so many Kathy friends, but I'm just like, Kathy.
You like Kathy.
My favorite thing about Kathy was Kathy's like outfits, and every time Marion like describes what she's wearing, it's always just like, it's a skirt it has sunflowers, and then her shawl has peacocks, and then it's this. And I'm like,
it's like, aren't you supposed to be in mourning?
Yeah.
We did for 7 whole minutes, weren't you paying attention?
She did it 7 whole
We can
minutes,
move
and
on
she's
now.
like, bury the girl.
Bury the girl. I'm wearing all of the patterns.
Also, Toby, eat your food. I'm going to dump some salt on it and now eat it.
Oh my gosh, Kathy.
Kathy.
Like, all of the characters, I just like loved and hated all of them. Like I just was like obsessed with this family.
I didn't hate Toby.
I didn't hate
Marion.
Toby.
I didn't hate Alice. I mean, everybody.
And then there was all the asylum people, right?
I loved, but
Kitty.
I loved. Kitty, I just
wonderful.
was like, oh,
Kitty's,
Kitty.
you know, you talk about writing process. She's a character who just showed up.
I get
literally the scene where she's running by the carriage, Mrs. I'm like, who are you?
Who are you? I get that. So
Is she your
much.
Agnes?
Because I have a character in my Victorian era asylum books named Agnes, who literally showed up just being like a brat. And then all of a sudden she was like one of the main characters. And I'm like,
all of a sudden I am the plot of the book.
I know. I'm like, oh my God, she's so important to it now.
Yeah, isn't that so fun?
I think it may be this asylum thing, that the asylums just have a cast of characters that you start writing. They're like, would you like one of our inmates? Here you go.
And you're like,
that never happened to me.
I know. Do you want to come see what's in this room? No. And they open the door and it's Kitty.
No, we don't.
Do you want to come to floor 5? Right? Like, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
There isn't one, but I'll go.
How high is the roof? Oh, how high is it up on that part? Oh.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
Kitty
very
was a
fun.
great character. She was another
Yeah.
one that I was like, we need a short story about Kitty and the extended hardcover version about this, a Kitty origin
I
story.
love Kitty. There are some people that I wish that I could write other books around, and I might when I get time. It's like, even if they're novellas, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah, like a
these
collection of
Kitty's pretty
short
cool.
stories.
Sure, I've
based on,
never
like-
written a short story. I'm like afraid of them.
So
You
am
should
I.
be. They're terrible. No, just kidding.
I know.
No,
They're
there's
terrifying
no, there's no wiggle room in them.
There
They're
isn't.
just-
No.
No,
I
there
know.
isn't,
Wiggle
and it's interesting because I've read a ton of short stories and I've written a ton of short stories, and I've never written a short story that I'm like, yes, this is a good short story, because I realize the way I write, you can't shorten it beyond a certain point before you've lost everything. Like, and that's a fail. All right.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
not my thing. That's okay.
I went through a phase about a year and a half, where I'm like, I'm going to write some short stories.
How'd that work out for you?
Not good.
You've never sent me one.
They're not good. No, I think one is pretty good, but it's more experimental. And I feel like at this point, it doesn't really read like a short story. It reads like a weird long poem.
That
Ooh,
could be a thing.
that's cool.
Which could be a
Read long
thing.
poems?
That
But
could
I
be a
was like,
thing.
but there's no beginning, middle, and end. There's just these things are happening.
But I
there's
think
just like
that
a
short
middle.
stories, they don't have to have beginning, middles, and ends. I
know.
hear.
I
They can
hear
be slice.
they can be a slice of
and
No,
I-
things.
that's
I've
me.
read a
I don't
ton of
know.
them.
I'm afraid of them.
and I've read, I mean, some of my favorites, I love the Neil Gaiman collections. They're really good. And I've also done a lot of the like best of anthologies. But
Mhm.
even with the best of anthologies, I'll read an entire anthology and go, there was one in here that I liked, and the rest of this was a waste. Sorry, they didn't do anything for me. And I think it's part of it is the things that drive me are less concept driven and less twists. And, how can we make this little thing just kind of a twist at the end, and more about relationships and story arc. And it's hard to do that in small spaces. So if you can do that, amazing. And if you can't, I'm not going to hate you, because
But that's
Right.
why I
Whatever
like
you do.
the idea of like taking characters that people might already know, like
Right.
characters that you've already written that we already have a relationship with, and
Yeah.
maybe write a short story or something about them, because then we don't have to, as your like loyal readers, we don't have to be introduced to Kitty because we know her.
or just
Right.
let Jen write the fan fiction for it.
I'll just write fan fiction.
It's fine.
I'll just
That's what
write
fan fiction does. It
Tim
comes
Taylor
in with
Blakemore fan
relationships
fiction.
with
That'd be
characters
hilarious.
in worlds already established. So if we find Jen writing
feel
archive
like
of your own,
if my
there you go.
agent is watching this now, I'm
Paula.
going to get like a message to me saying like, can you please finish your book before you start writing fan fiction based on After Alice Fell?
Yeah. it's
I
like,
am finishing my book.
When's your deadline?
It's,
Okay.
We aren't talking about
money.
deadlines.
We're
We
not
don't talk
talking about
deadlines.
no,
We're talking
I
about
need to have
writing.
something
No,
to
no.
her this month.
I have my edits are due on Monday for the new book, and
Sorry, I like what's like, oh God.
so if I'm talking like a weirdo, ever just tell me, because I'm just, how you get, okay, this is the part
Yes.
of the writing process that I don't think people know. It's when you get to edits and you doubt every single thing you ever wrote in the book.
Uh-huh.
So, right? And
Yeah.
so I've
Yeah.
got all
Even
these beautiful
certain
notes from
drafts,
my
you can
editor.
just be
and-
like, this isn't even a thing.
I've been told mine aren't.
We all
I
have.
I have to say my editor's amazing, and she gives me amazing ideas that I say like, why didn't I think of that? That's brilliant. So I have all that. So you'd think I'd have a roadmap, but no, I have to spend 3 hours trying to change one line of dialogue because I have to. And it's like nobody's going to
Can you just
care.
get rid of it?
Like today, I'm
Can
like,
you just be
nobody's
gone?
going to care.
Can it just be gone? If it's that problematic, can we just get rid of it? No
it
one's
just
going to
has
notice.
to be perfect, right? That's
Yeah.
when you're that late in that edit that's going out.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. And I swear, I'm just like, I have 2 scenes that I'm totally rewriting. Like, they have to be completely rewritten. Like, you're insane.
Like, did they really have to be totally rewritten? We get where you are in the
You
process
get
where
where
you're
I'm
like,
at, right?
what I should do? Completely scrap my whole plot
I'm
and
just going
try
to throw the
something
whole
new.
thing. Yeah, I'll have
Yeah.
you a new thing by Monday. It's a different story. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
I know I did not do what you asked for, but I can easily do that by tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
here's my 95,000 words that
Exactly.
I'll
Here
see
are my
by tomorrow.
bricks.
Here are
Here's
my
the
bricks.
brick.
Want to see my brick catalog?
Which brick would you like?
I can definitely build a house out of this.
You have until Monday and go.
And then in the middle of it, my computer is dying. So it's like
No,
I'm trying to save, and it's 20 minutes of a spinning ball.
Oh,
Of
no.
not the
death.
spinning wheel of death.
The spinning wheel
That
of
gives
death.
me like a
More than
panic
once,
attack right
days
now.
of this.
Okay,
and
I
I'm
shouldn't
just
say this on my computer because it's listening, like literally listening
They
through the
do. They
microphone.
listen.
But
Yeah.
mine has been doing this thing, and I don't want a new computer. I don't want a new computer. Where it doesn't turn on most days. It just has to go.
This one
I just keep pushing the button repeatedly, and then eventually it does. Every time it has, but every day I'm like, is this going to be the day I've got to drive down to Micro Center and buy a new computer day of because I got a show to do? And it always turns on, but it usually
This
takes
is the
5
exact
to 20
problem
minutes.
my computer has as well. Like hit the button, nothing happens. Hit the button, nothing happens.
Mine, everything lights up, and sometimes if I hold it down, it sounds like the beginning of Erasure's chorus, and it's like.
Oh. Sometimes mine doesn't do anything. The lights go on and then off, and I'm like, but no noise happens.
I wish that I still hand wrote at times like this.
Right, but you know what you can't do? You can't do a podcast with handwriting. It doesn't work that
They
way.
call that pen
work.
pals.
Yeah, pen pals.
Hello, guest. How are you? Please answer
And then we
that.
just-
we will send you the transcript.
Then we just read aloud into like a CB radio.
Kim's
Breaker
talking about
Breaker
bricks.
19. Kim
I don't
said
understand. I must be
there
reading
was a
her handwriting
pile of
wrong.
bricks over.
984 brick calling in.
Oh, God.
I think Kim actually is in an asylum, where she will be by the time of
Oh my
the
goodness.
edit being
Okay.
due.
Well,
But
I'm
hopefully-
thrilled that you came here on like just several days before your edits are due for taking the time
Yeah,
out
we're
of the.
sorry.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm happy. I'm happy for it.
We're a distraction.
Really, really good. You guys, no, I've been waiting for
Look,
this. and you
look, I
keep
Don't
can't-
do it.
I know, I'm like. For
Cool,
people
Karen.
watching the video, my hands are orange. I color
Jen
boosted
has
my
ours.
hair.
Jen
They're
has what?
gold.
C3PO.
They look
She
like
has
gold.
shiny
C3PO hands.
gold.
But we are hoping you will get to those edits and you figure out that whatever that scene needs to be, and it's just perfect. And maybe ask your editor, can you give me a little guidance right on this line? Like what
She'll
needs
be
to
like that one word. You
Like,
just
yeah,
need
I
to,
want just like a roadmap. Just write it for me. What you want changed there. Just write it. It's fine. I'll take that.
like
No.
instead of
And
just
it's
saying
so-
this needs some work, just be like, could you rewrite that line the way it works?
Yeah.
Could you tell me how
What
it
do you mean
works?
by that?
Could you words for me?
Like
And
if
then
you
I'm
were
always,
to
like,
write
trying
it,
to act like I'm so like I know everything, right? I know how to do this. You know what it's like. You doubt. There's doubt always.
Yeah.
And I think if we didn't have it as writers, we'd have very mediocre
we would be
material.
insufferable.
I
And
might have been
and-
talking to a friend about that today, but I won't.
Really?
Not about. We were talking to each other about other people who. That is kind of some people's attitudes who are just like, I don't need anyone to tell me how to do things, and here's my work, and people can take it or leave it, and they're mostly leaving it. And so he's like, I don't really want to help somebody with a marketing component if they're not willing to put in the work in the draft of a good product component. And I'm like, I think you're correct that if you're not willing to put in the work on your craft, then maybe doing the marketing, you're putting the effort in the wrong place.
Right.
Just
Yeah,
a
you
thought.
kind of might want to think about that.
Yeah.
Just
Think about having a good story to begin with.
maybe. Or strong prose. Those are both good things to have. You know.
Exactly.
really like, compelling characters, something that's, you have all of that.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, well, thank you.
You just got to fix that, whatever that
Just
line
gotta
is
fix
that your
that one
editor is like,
sentence,
please fix
whatever
this.
that is.
You know how
This
but
line.
they're like lines of dialogue you think can change the tenor of the scene in the next
Yeah.
scenes to
Yeah.
come. And if they're not exactly right, it's like, it's muddy. That just
Do you
feels
say-
muddy.
When you're at that point in the process, do you say the words out loud? Like I always find, like, especially dialogue, if I don't say it, don't figure out where the characters are breathing,
Mhm.
where
Where the
they're
emphasis in the
where
words.
the
Oh, that's
emphasis,
fantastic.
where they're like going, oh, I have to look away because I can't look at the person right now. Like,
Mhm.
I fall to that because then I'm like, oh,
Well, that's when your drama takes over because
Mhm.
Jen's an actress, so that's where your training kicks into drama over
like
necessarily
what is a
literature.
sentence?
Right? And
Right.
we've worked with you on punctuation sometimes because you're just like, well, but this is how I'd say it out loud. I'm like, it's not a play. We're going to put a comma and then a semicolon. There you go. You're done.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Exactly. I'm like, but I'd be breathing there.
I know you would.
Right. And I started in theater too. So I was in theater in LA, and characters to me, I hear them first.
Kim, what were you doing in LA as theater? What were you doing here?
Oh, this is so long ago. My God.
I still want to know.
Long ago. I moved out of there a long time ago, but I did
Cloud9.
Very long time ago. Then I switched to writing because I just couldn't see myself as an actress. I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I like animals and I like to be in one place. I didn't want to go,
fair.
audition every year at different regional
theaters for a while, and then I was like, oh my gosh, it's just so much. And
besides, we have plenty of rejection in the literary world. You don't need it for
having. Exactly. I want to be rejected in a different way.
Yeah,
intellectually,
exactly.
Not based on the fact that I'm not the right look.
Right.
I can do that all the time.
That's called dating.
Easy. Exactly.
That is hilarious.
Jen, I think we should have Kim send us her dialogue and we'll do it like Mad Lib style. So remove the problematic word and we'll just give new words. They won't be helpful words.
They won't be helpful.
But it'll be funny.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, it would be hilarious.
We'll insert random animals. Have you considered using a tamarin in this line?
No.
There were not tamarins back in 1875.
Porcupine quills. I'm like, it's New Hampshire. We've got to think New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
Porcupine. Fox.
Some random deer gets hit by a carriage.
Raccoon.
I finally moved out of the having to name all the bushes there and all the plants and everything. So that was all very much in the 1855 one. There was like everything.
You were naming the bushes?
Everything. You knew what everything was that was in the woods. And then I realized it's part of, it's the things you do that are unconscious, but they're part of our lives as we move from rural to more industrial, is we start losing names of things that were very common to know.
Bush
at the time.
Bush.
Yeah, now bush. Now they're like,
bush.
I fell in the brush. But then it was like, I fell in the oak, and the whatever it was, the silver maple, not the red maple, because they only had this kind. And
well, I appreciated the shout out to the silver maple, because I turned to my husband and I said, your favorite tree is in this book.
Oh, tell your husband it's my favorite tree.
He's the producer. He's listening right now.
There you go.
Roman,
I love silver maple.
It's your favorite tree, Roman.
I didn't even know he had a favorite tree.
Well, when you live in New Hampshire, you do have favorite trees.
You mean like a favorite kind of tree, not like a specific tree, right?
I think he has one that every time he sees it, he's like, oh, it's so beautiful. But it's a silver maple. Okay. It's a very specific silver maple. But he likes them in general.
I live in a sort of small town that's all around the wine country in Oregon, but I used to live in Portland, and I drive down the freeway and there was one cherry tree just on the freeway, a scraggly thing, but it bloomed. It was the first thing that bloomed. And so when I knew that bloomed pink, I said, oh my God, we're out of the season of depression. Life will be good again.
It's a seasonal here. It's the anti-seasonal depression tree.
Yeah, it is. And it was just like, I would look for it all of March, right? Just like waiting for that tree, because it's very depressing here.
Instead of open, it's bloom, bloom, bloom.
Yeah. And it would just happen like that. It would be like nothing, scraggly, and then completely pink.
Love it.
Love that tree.
Well, Kim, I hate to stop. We could talk to you all night, but you have edits to do.
You do.
Oh, I love talking to you guys. And I don't know if we've... How much?
You're in no way avoiding doing those edits right now.
We talked about writing.
Please, we will. Let's continue on. Let's read the Iliad.
We'll read aloud to each other for hours, and then we'll do a lantern show. Kim, you are welcome back anytime.
I would talk about
trees, bricks, writing, your books, of course. Just in general.
I would love to. Anytime. You guys are so awesome.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. And I appreciate you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Everyone. Cheers. Thank you to Roman, our producer, and Pam Stack, our executive producer. This has been a copywritten podcast for the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and we will see you all next week.